My girl, I'm so glad you're enjoying the apartment I got you. Grandpa beamed across the brunch table, raising his mimosa like it was just another warm family moment. The air stilled. I froze mid-sip, the orange juice burning down my throat. Eyes darted toward me from all directions. My mom's painted lips parted in confusion. My sister looked up from her phone, and my dad dropped his fork. It hit the porcelain plate with a sharp clink. I could feel my heartbeat behind my eyes as the silence grew dense. I glanced down, wiped my hands on the napkin in my lap, then looked up at Grandpa. I live in a basement, I whispered. His smile faltered. What? I never got any apartment, I said, louder this time. My voice was even, steady. I wasn't about to cry here, not after all these years. A hush dropped like a storm cloud. I felt it in my bones. What are you talking about? Grandpa asked, blinking in slow motion. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The room shifted. My mom reached for her coffee, hands trembling just enough to spill a drop. My sister stopped chewing. Dad coughed, then reached for his water, like he had something stuck in his throat. Truth, maybe. I looked around at all of them. You never sent me anything, Grandpa, I said again calmly. I've been living in a windowless basement for 4 years. The only gift I've gotten from this family in a decade was silence. Wait, hold on, Grandpa said, pushing his chair back a few inches. I wired the down payment to your dad 4 years ago. He told me he surprised you with it after graduation. My mouth went dry. A shiver ran up my spine, but I forced myself to breathe. Dad's face had gone pale, ashen. My mom turned to him slowly. You said you helped her find a cute place downtown, she whispered, her voice tight.
Dad,
I asked, locking eyes with him. He shifted uncomfortably. I meant to. No, I cut in. You meant to keep it. A gasp escaped from someone's lips. Grandpa sat back in his chair, lips pressed together, knuckles white against the edge of the table. He looked like he'd been sucker punched. I sat straighter, my voice steady but sharp. You told me to work harder, to stop expecting handouts. All that time, you let me scrub other people's floors while you pocketed the money that was meant to give me a start. The air was venomous now.
thick,
Hot. It crackled with unspoken truths. I stood up, hands still shaking, heart pounding. I wasn't going to say anything today. But since we're celebrating birthdays, maybe it's time we all stop pretending. And I walked out. Behind me, chairs screeched back. Footsteps fumbled. I didn't stop. The hallway outside the restaurant was quiet, but the rage boiling inside me was anything but. I could still feel every pair of eyes on me from that table. The shock, the guilt, the discomfort they finally deserved. I didn't cry. Not this time. As I reached the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. Fast ones. Kayla, wait, Grandpa called out. I turned. He looked older than he did 20 minutes ago. His smile was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen from him in years. Pure, unfiltered sorrow. You seriously never got the apartment? I shook my head. I've been renting a basement from a woman who smokes. So much her walls are yellow. There's a boiler next to my bed. My rent's paid in cash because she doesn't believe in banks. I've eaten dinner sitting on the floor more nights than I can count. He swallowed. Your father said you didn't want help, that you were being independent. My chest rose. I asked him for a job lead once. He said, and I quote, "Try flipping burgers first. Builds character." Grandpa's eyes flicked down. He said you were ungrateful, that you moved into your dream place without even thanking him. A bitter laugh escaped me. I didn't know there was anything to thank him for. He rubbed a hand over his face and sighed. I trusted him. I didn't reply. The silence stretched, but I didn't fill it. Then he said something that surprised me. I want to fix this. I folded my arms.
How?
I want to see where you live. My head snapped up. Why? Because if it's as bad as you say, and I believe it is, then he stole from both of us. And I'm done letting anyone lie to me. That night, I drove Grandpa to my place. He didn't say much as I led him down the crumbling side steps to the basement door. The overhead bulb flickered as I unlocked it. The scent of old cigarettes and mildew greeted us. I stepped aside. Welcome to my palace. He stepped inside, looked around slowly, at the second-hand couch, the leaning bookcase, the stained ceiling tiles, the tiny bed pushed up against the laundry machine. His face didn't change for several seconds. Then he sat on the edge of my bed and let out the saddest exhale I'd ever heard. This is what you've been living in? I nodded. Since college ended. His eyes got glassy. He said he was saving the rest for your wedding. I thought it made sense at the time. There is no rest. My voice was flat. You gave him $70,000. That money disappeared the moment it hit his account. Grandpa looked at the floor, then back at me. Not anymore.
He stood.
Tomorrow, he said, we're going to the bank. And the lawyer. And after that, I think your dad and I need to have a very long conversation. I didn't smile, but inside, something stirred. A shift. Like I had finally cracked the glass everyone else had been watching me through. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of burnt coffee and the sound of Grandpa on the phone, talking to his lawyer. I don't care if it's Sunday, Howard. Find the paperwork. I want every transfer traced. Every cent. And I want you to draft a letter stating I no longer authorize Daniel Whitmore to act on my behalf in any financial capacity. His voice was cold steel. A tone I had never heard him use, not even when Dad had wrecked his truck back in high school or when Mom forgot his medication once. This was different. I stayed in the hallway, barefoot on the cold concrete floor, listening in silence. Something inside me, something long dormant, felt seen. By noon, we were sitting in a crisp, wood-paneled office downtown. Grandpa had pulled strings to get an emergency appointment. The banker, a prim woman in her 50s, clicked through records on her screen, lips pressed tightly. I do see the transfer here, she said finally, adjusting her glasses. From Mr. Whitmore's account to Daniel Whitmore, your son, marked as gift for Kayla's condo. She turned the monitor toward us. The date was there. The exact amount. Everything Grandpa said was true. Then she clicked again. My heart dropped. It showed another transfer, 5 days later, where my dad had moved the entire amount into a separate investment account under his name. No mention of me. No note. No nothing. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Grandpa stared at the screen in silence, then asked in a calm voice, "Can I get a printed copy of all that?" "Yes, sir." When she stepped away, he turned to me. "He betrayed you. And he lied to me. This isn't just family drama, Kayla. It's theft." I nodded slowly. "Don't worry," he added. "I'll handle it." But I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "We'll handle it." That afternoon, we drove straight to my parents' house. I hadn't stepped foot there in years. The same house where I used to decorate cupcakes with Mom. Where Dad once taught me how to ride a bike, before he started ignoring my calls. Where my sister threw a party the week I moved out and left my stuff on the lawn. Grandpa rang the doorbell. Dad opened it, half confused, half annoyed. His eyes widened when he saw both of us. "We need to talk," Grandpa said, voice firm. "I'm kinda busy."
Sit
down. Grandpa didn't raise his voice.
He didn't need to.
Mom hovered in the background, her brows furrowed. My sister peeked down the staircase, sensing tension like a vulture. We all gathered in the living room. Grandpa placed a thick folder on the coffee table. Dad didn't even look at it. Then Grandpa dropped the hammer. "You told me Kayla was living in that apartment I bought her. But the money never made it there. You took it. You stole it. And you lied to your daughter and to me." Dad chuckled nervously. "Come on, Dad, you're blowing this out of." "She's been living in a basement," Grandpa snapped. "Eating on the floor. Working 2 jobs. While you used her money to pad your investments. I was holding it for her future. Don't." My voice cut in sharp. "Just don't lie again. You told me I was lazy. Entitled. that I didn't deserve help. Meanwhile, you were living off the money that was meant to give me a chance. Dad's jaw clenched. Grandpa opened the folder and slid the papers toward him. I've already spoken to Howard. We'll pursue legal action if we have to. But you're going to pay back every cent. And you're going to explain yourself in front of the family at the next brunch. No more secrets. No more pretending you're some noble father. Mom whispered, Daniel, tell me this isn't true. He said nothing. Silence. Then Grandpa turned to me. You'll move in with me next week. I've already called the realtor. We'll find you a proper place to live. I stared at Dad one last time. He couldn't meet my eyes. The man who once told me, you'll never make it without me, looked small now, shrinking under the weight of truth. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free, and that was better. The following Sunday, brunch was held at the same restaurant. Same table, same faces. But everything had changed. I wasn't seated near the end anymore, squeezed between an ice bucket and a chair that didn't match. I sat beside Grandpa this time, at the head. His hand rested lightly on mine as we waited for everyone to arrive. When Dad walked in, he looked like he'd aged 5 years in 1 week. The usual fake charm on his face was gone. Mom stayed close to him, tight-lipped and tense. My sister wore sunglasses indoors, like she didn't want to see what was about to unfold. Grandpa stood up before anyone could pretend this was a normal Sunday. I'm going to keep this short, he said, his voice sharp and loud enough for the entire room to quiet. I've invited everyone here because last week I learned that a grave injustice was done in my name. For years ago, I sent money, my own savings, to help Kayla start her adult life. I was told she received it. I was told she was thriving. He turned slightly toward me. That was a lie. The room went still. A server froze mid-pour. I looked up, feeling the burn behind my eyes again, but I held it in. This wasn't about tears. Not anymore. Grandpa continued. Daniel took that money. He invested it, hid it, and then let his daughter suffer in silence, making her feel unworthy, lazy, and dependent, all while pretending he was being a responsible parent. A wave of murmurs rolled through the family members seated around us. My aunt gasped. My cousin blinked hard, clearly piecing things together. My dad shifted in his seat. Grandpa turned fully toward him now. You betrayed both of us. And from this moment forward, you will not touch another cent of my estate. Every asset, every trust, every future transaction, it's all being restructured. You've lost that privilege. Then, slowly, Grandpa pulled a folded document from his jacket and laid it gently in front of him. I want you to read this out loud. Dad looked at the paper like it was poison. Grandpa's voice sharpened.
Now.
His hands shook as he opened the letter. And when he began to read, his voice broke with every sentence. To my family, I stole from my daughter, Kayla Whitmore. I took funds meant for her future and lied about their purpose. I have wronged her, my father, and the integrity of this family. I accept full responsibility and will pay back the full amount within 6 months. I am deeply sorry. When he finished, there was only silence. No clapping, no gasps, just a heavy, collective breath. And for the first time in years, I looked at my father and didn't feel small. I felt seen. And that night, back at Grandpa's house, I stood on the porch with him under the stars. I still can't believe you never asked for anything, he said. I was done asking, I replied softly. He nodded. I'm sorry, I didn't check sooner. I'm not, I said after a beat, because now I know who's really in my corner. He smiled faintly. You're not going back to that basement. I know. I found a place for you, he added.
Downtown.
Light wood floors. Real windows. I laughed quietly. That already sounds like a mansion. You deserve it. Maybe I did. But more than anything, I deserve to stop fighting for scraps. The new apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows. The first morning I woke up there, the sun streamed in like it had been waiting for me. I didn't hear my landlady cursing at her dog through the wall. I didn't hear the pipes groaning beside my head. Just silence.
Peace.
I sat on the edge of my new bed, a real bed, not a second-hand futon, and stared out at the city skyline. I wasn't used to seeing the sky like this. I wasn't used to feeling safe. That day, I started something I had buried years ago. I opened my laptop, dusted off the folder I used to keep hidden behind job applications and bills. The folder labeled designs. Inside were the sketches and layouts I once dreamed would become my career, before the world convinced me that stability mattered more than passion. Before my dad looked at my portfolio and said, "It's cute, but when are you going to get serious?" Now, I got serious. I applied to design studios, freelance networks. I even launched a small online portfolio. I used the money Grandpa gave me not just to survive, but to start. Weeks passed, then months. One afternoon, I got a call. A local architecture firm had seen my submissions. They were launching a new community housing project and needed someone who could think creatively, someone who understood making the most out of small spaces. I smiled. "I've lived that," I told them. When I walked into their downtown office for the first time, I wore the same beige coat my mom once called cheap and childish. The receptionist offered me water. The creative director offered me a seat. By the end of the meeting, I had a contract in hand. It wasn't just a job. It was proof. Proof that I was never the failure they painted me to be. That living in a basement didn't mean I belonged beneath anyone. Months later, it was my turn to host brunch. Not in a restaurant. Not in someone else's house.
Mine.
Real plates. Real laughter. Real sunlight streaming through the windows. Grandpa brought flowers and set them in the vase I'd bought myself with my first paycheck. My cousin, who used to roll her eyes when I talked about my art, leaned in and asked me about color palettes and mood boards. Dad wasn't there. He hadn't been back since the day of the letter. He repaid the money. On time. But the apologies stayed on paper. That was fine with me, because some people's absence is the greatest piece of all. And as I passed around a tray of fresh scones, I caught Grandpa watching me with a soft smile on his face. "This," he said, "this is what I imagined." I touched his hand. "Me too."